All right, welcome. Let's see. It's Wednesday, December 13th, 2023, about 2:06 p.m. Here for our monthly towing task force meeting. We'll go ahead and refer to the agenda that was pre-circulated prior to the meeting, which means we're going to start with the roll call. So we'll go ahead and start with John Connolly. I do not see him yet. Captain Hahn had indicated he was going to have a sub today for him.
Sergeant Rose here for him.
Sergeant Rowe, thank you. Jim Howes, do not see him yet. Michael Pierce, do not see him yet either. Officer Prunski.
I am here.
Thank you. And Brandon Rich, do not see him yet. Jeffrey Reister, do not see him. Nathan Riley, that's myself, I am present. And Joyanne Rusha, do not see her yet either. Given it is December and kind of around the holiday season, I'm not too surprised there aren't as many of us here as there are, but I do appreciate those of you who did show up. Looks like we also have our Attorney General, John Roberts. Thanks for being here, as well as Hadija Abdirahman. She is one of the employees, compliance specialist for the Public Utilities Commission, helping out. So thank you both for being here. All right, jumping again into the agenda. If we at some point during this meeting obtain a quorum, we would have a motion for approval to approve the last 3 meetings worth of minutes. We'll wait and see if that happens. If not, then we'll make it for next meeting in January. Other administrative items. Hold on, let me just make sure there's nothing else here. I think that might be it. Obviously, if we're coming up on January here, that's when we typically will do our annual compliance training pursuant to our department, where we cover things such as conflict of interest, ex parte communications, open meetings law, all of that. I think we will plan to do that during the January meeting as we have done before. So that's coming up. I know I had mentioned, I think during our last meeting, there was a an additional department training that was, they were asking us all to do. It was like an OIT cybersecurity training. I did it myself. It was pretty easy to do. It took about 10, 15 minutes. You just signed up for an account and did it. It was pretty straightforward. We have similar ones here for the department. So I was kind of used to what the training was about. Let's see. So once we go through that training in January, we will also be required to do compliance affidavits again, like we've had to do in previous years. So just keep an eye out for those. Hadija will likely be circulating those after the training occurs. So if you could please keep a lookout for that in your TTF email. And if you see it, go ahead. If you've done the training, go ahead and sign it and return it so we can file it with the department. Appreciate you helping out with that. And then another that is kind of more of an administrative item is the next list on the agenda, which is towing task force bylaws. So we did circulate a copy of these. I'll probably share them here in a second. Let me find them. Here we go. I think this is
Nate, were they discussed at all at the last meeting that I wasn't able to attend?
It was referenced that it would probably come up in a future meeting. I have them that are seem like they're mostly ready to go.
Good.
Let me find the attachment here, and we can share it on the screen and kind of talk through it a little bit. Give me 1 second. I think this is them. This should be wait. There we go. Yeah, so this should be the one we circulated. So we'll go ahead and I'll share it on the screen real quick. I can zoom in a little bit. So basically, this is just kind of an outline of pretty much what we've mostly been doing anyway, in regards to our procedures and how we handle motions and some other things of that nature. So I just wanted to kind of walk through this real quick. I know not everybody's here, but we can at least have a quick discussion about it. So that way other members who aren't here can reference it later. So basically, this would be something that we would vote to put in place for this board commission body that we would follow and kind of reference when we conduct our business. So basically, under basis and purpose, the basis and purpose of these bylaws is to advise the public and any other persons of the practice and procedures of the towing task force. These bylaws are promulgated in order to properly regulate the business of the task force. And then getting into some of the general provisions for scope and applicability, these bylaws in section 4010.1403, which is our underlying statute, shall apply to all task force business, to any person transacting business with the task force, appearing before the task force, or participating in task force business, unless a specific statute or rule provides otherwise. Moving on to meetings under 1001. So regular meetings in accordance with section 4010.14033B, the chair of the task force may designate the times and frequency of the task force's meetings. So it's the chair's responsibility to schedule those. And the task force may hold other meetings from time to time. I would indicate that pursuant to statute, we are required to meet at least 2 times per year. Pursuant to our underlying statute under 403. Open meetings law, all meetings of the task force shall be held in compliance with the requirements of the Colorado open meeting law, pursuant to sections 24.6, 401, and 402. Quorum for the transaction of business at any meeting shall consist of at least 8 members. So again, because we have 14 total members constituting this body, half of that is 7, and we need 1 more, so that's 8. Moving on to agenda, the task force shall prepare an agenda for each upcoming meeting. We've been staying pretty on top of that since the beginning of 2022, when we were all appointed. Order of business, task force has discretion regarding the order of business at each meeting and may consider emergency matters not shown on the agenda when appropriate. Executive session. Upon affirmative vote of 10 or more task force members, task force may hold an executive session. Excuse me.
While Nate's getting a drink, I can pick that up. Executive session under the statute 24.6.402 needs to be by 2/3, and 2/3 of 14 is 9 point something. And since we can't have a point something of a person, we have to round up to 10. So we're at 10 for executive session. Back to you, Nate.
Thank you. Got a little scratch in my throat.
No worries.
Hopefully it doesn't stick around long. Minutes. Minutes of all meetings shall at a minimum indicate the members present, all items of business, all motions, except those that were withdrawn, and the results of all votes taken. Moving on to rules of order. And I see we have a couple members who have joined. Welcome, Mr. Howes and Mr. Reister. We're just going over one of the attachments, the exhibits that was circulated with the agenda. It's the new proposed towing task force bylaws. 1002 rules of order. So to the extent practical, the following rules of order shall apply to all meetings of the task force. For voting, All issues to be voted on shall be decided by a simple majority of those present at the meeting during which the vote takes place. For procedure, after recognition by the chair, a task force member may introduce a motion when no other motions are pending. When necessary, a motion can be prefaced by a few words of explanation. All motions require a second to be considered and discussed by the task force. The second merely implies that the seconder agrees that the motion should come before the meeting and not that the seconder necessarily favors the motion. So make sure you're aware of that distinction. The chair may ask membership for a motion on a subject under current discussion. After recognition by the chair, a task force member may move to amend a pending motion. So possible motions, following is a non-exclusive list of possible routine motions. So motion to approve, accepts information as presented, such as prior meeting minutes. Move to amend, changes the language of a pending motion. Move to table, postpones action on a matter where the task force determines that it needs to gather more additional information. Matter will be considered at a subsequent task force meeting. Call the question, closes the discussion and brings task force to a vote on the pending motion. Move to reconsider. Brings an earlier motion back to the floor as though the vote had not occurred. And move to adjourn terminates the meeting. So those are some examples of motions that could be held during one of our meetings. And not all of them may apply, but it's kind of a list of what could apply. Does anybody have any thoughts on any of these as they're kind of laid out? Any thoughts at all? Okay. Well, we don't have a quorum, so we can't implement it today anyway, but yeah, just take a little time to review these, and if there's any particular aspects of what's written down here, maybe make a note, and then when we bring this up again, we can discuss it at that time. All right. Okay. Let's see. Let me go back to the agenda. So let's see. So our last two items are just open discussion and then public comments. I think Hadija had indicated there are no public commenters that signed up in anticipation of today's meetings. As you all know, we do post a form as part of the notice that leads them to a sign-up sheet if they want to sign up beforehand, or they can just join. But I'm not seeing anybody outside of our group here currently, and nobody had used that form to sign up, indicating they wish to comment to the task force. So I anticipate we'll probably see no public comment during the meeting today. So with that, really the last thing on the agenda is open discussion, where we can kind of talk about what anybody wants to talk about. I know as part of our most recent meetings, we've talked about potential alternatives to the CPI metric that's currently used by the commission to essentially implement the newer, I guess we could say, annual inflation adjustment mechanism that is done every year at the beginning of the year. The next one's coming up in March. So I doubt anything would get put in place, regardless of any recommendations the towing task force might make by this coming March, because it would require rulemaking of the commission to change it from what it currently is. But I do think it still warrants some more exploration by the task force to determine, if one of these other metrics we had talked about in previous meetings is a good idea to suggest the commission use as an alternative to the just regular Denver, Lakewood, Aurora CPI mechanism through CDOLA. I know we also talked a bit about other states, and what they're doing. Just as part of my duties at the commission, I have done some pretty decent research in some of the other states about towing regulations just in general, but even more specifically about fees in other states, which I look into for other things as well. just as part of my job. But anyway, those are some of the recent topics that have come up over the past probably 2 or 3 months. Hold on, look at the minutes. Officer Prunski.
Have you found anything interesting in the other states regarding their rates?
Yeah, I'd say in most other states, it's not. It doesn't seem like the rates move around as much as they do here. Now, of course, it probably is a little more closely tied to what we had before, the implementation of the new annual inflation adjustment mechanism. Because prior to that, I'd say we probably saw a towing rate update every 4 to 5 years, probably ish, somewhere in there. The towing industry, of course, and really any parties are always free to file a petition for rulemaking with the commission, which gets addressed, whenever they're filed, usually in pretty short order, within a month or two, usually, where they can request really changes to anything they want changes to. So if they're seeing a rule that's causing some kind of a negative impact, they can always at any time file a petition for rulemaking with the commission, which they'll explore and take their arguments and consider it. And then they either decide to do a NOPR or not. So it just depends on what they're asking for and what the arguments are, really. Usually those get noticed as well, so other stakeholders have the opportunity to participate and kind of share their thoughts on it as well. Sometimes that's taken advantage of, and people do file comments and things into the record for the commission to consider. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes nobody comments about it one way or the other. So, it really just depends. But yeah, other states, there's other states where the rates are similar to ours, and in some cases there's other states where certain rates are even more than ours. So like storage rates for larger vehicles in another state is, probably around twice what we charge here in Colorado currently under the current rate. So things like that. There has been some commentary about some of our rates, and I know we've talked about that internally here with the task force as well, which is things like the after hours fee. There was another state I talked to, and when I mentioned that fee to them, they said, "What is that?" I said, "Well, if a towing carrier releases a motor vehicle that's been towed as a non-consensual tow after hours, so basically outside of regular business hours, they can charge an additional fee." And they they came back with, "Well, that doesn't make sense. If they're open 24, if they're towing 24 hours, they should be open 24 hours to release vehicles." And it's an interesting argument. But did you have any other thoughts, Craig?
No, just kind of curious as what the other data is kind of showing based on the rates and kind of what they're using to justify where they're at.
Sure. It's nice to see that other states, several other states, in fact, do kind of have a range of charges based on the size of the vehicle, which is exactly what we have here. Mm-hmm. And we've had that in effect since about 2015, I'd say. So about the last 8 years or so, we've had that in place. We put it in place when we started regulating larger vehicles that are larger than 10,000 GVWR, but also when at that same time, we started regulating law enforcement order tows as well. Yeah. And so as part of that, one of the things we implemented was this kind of tiered rate system where based on the size of the towed vehicle, it's a certain amount that they can charge. The different maximum rates are set for those different tiers. And obviously as the vehicle size and weight goes up, that typically corresponds with the size and weight of the tow truck towing the vehicle also needing to go up. So that just inherently causes additional expenses in regards to things like fuel and also equipment value, all those different things. So it's nice to see that other states are kind of following a similar track in that regard.
Yeah. Was there anything that you came across other states doing the reimbursement to towing carriers and victims of what, like the stolen vehicles and stuff? I know we talked about it. It was a while ago, but.
Yeah. And I had done some research on that based on legislation in my, capacity as, section chief for transportation at the PUC. But yeah, we had done some research on that and basically had found out that basically no other states capture that at all. Like the closest thing is those individuals may be eligible to apply for some kind of compensation through like some type of a victim fund, like similar to what you might see at like a DA's office.
Yeah.
So that's really and that was only in like 1 or 2 other states.
Really?
Of all the dozen or so that I checked. So yeah, it's most people were like, no, it's really, you know, if a vehicle's towed, even as a law enforcement ordered tow, as the result of, you know, some type of criminal activity, like a stolen vehicle, or, you know, maybe it's being towed because it's evidence in like a assault case, or, you know, whatever the case may be. That basically, yeah, pretty much every other state was like, yeah, that's going to be the vehicle owner's responsibility. They just said it flat out like that. So that's basically the feedback I got on that particular point. And I did ask specifically about that.
Yeah. So don't get your car stolen.
Yeah, basically. I mean, but I mean, at the end of the day, that's really falling more under law enforcement ordered tows, which really isn't non-consensual towing anymore. It used to be.
Right.
But based on the recent statutory changes to the actual statutory definition of a non-consensual tow, it's only tows from private property. But even when you layer it like that, if it's going to be a law enforcement agent authorizing a tow, even if the origination point is happens to be on private property, we still consider it to be a law enforcement order tow. Like that takes precedent over the fact that it happened to occur on private property. So because it's not the property owner authorizing the tow, it's a law enforcement officer. So it's just a different brand of towing, essentially.
Yeah.
So that's something I think we don't really get into too much, based on our purpose here with the task force. But I think it's still interesting to just
It's definitely interesting.
briefly discuss it.
Yeah.
And we'll see what the legislature does, you know, moving forward on that particular topic. It may not tie to us specifically, but I mean, obviously, if they're going to be potentially almost, how would you say it? If they're going to be kind of, what's the word? Subsidizing certain types of tows, essentially at the expense of potentially other types of tows, then I think that may play into us a little bit. It just depends on what we're talking about. But interesting though.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts, Greg?
I think that's it.
Jim, Jeff, any thoughts from either of you?
Nothing on my end.
Okay.
No, I mean, I think it's interesting because, I mean, I'm glad you looked into that, Nate. Because, I mean, it has to be funded somehow. I mean, we can't ask a private carrier to, you know, to basically fund the stolen car. I know I've had to deal with it on my end where vehicles are stolen and the victim will call here and say, I have to get my car and pay the tow bill. I said, yeah. I mean, you know, it could be reimbursed. A lot of times those are reimbursed to insurance companies to the victims. If they have, but at the same time, it's not guaranteed either, but it is part of the loss. And so I don't know. It's when somebody doesn't have the comp and collision and the insurance company doesn't want the car. If they want the car, they have to pay the tow. But a lot of times that is, you know, I would say the majority of probably about 70% of the time it is reimbursed to the victim by the insurance company on the vehicle and for the tow bill also. But it would be I mean, I just have a hard time have an idea that the tow truck companies would be responsible for the cost of picking up, storing, and then they have to release the car. I mean, and that's the only collateral they have to collect their tow. So I am glad you looked into that, Nate, and that we're not that far off on it. other states, have kind of the same philosophy on that. So thanks.
Yeah, no, and I agree that it is a bit unfair to essentially put all of the burden on the towing carriers, because I mean, at the end of the day, they are responsible and liable for the vehicles that are in their possession and their custody after they've towed them, whether it's a non-consensual tow or a law enforcement order tow. I mean, it's in their possession, it's in their storage facility, so it is ultimately their responsibility, and they have all accompanying liability if something happens to that vehicle while it's in their possession. And so due to that, and obviously we have to comply with the new laws that impact to a certain extent what the towing carriers can charge when they release vehicles, at least certain types of vehicles towed from certain locations. But I mean, it doesn't really shift what the towing carrier's responsibility, because they're still going to have to hold on to that vehicle until it's collected, and that could be days, weeks, months, even at times, and that's a lot of responsibility for them to shoulder, which is kind of the whole point of this business model. They perform these services and expect to get compensated. It doesn't always work out that way, especially with abandoned motor vehicles. But yeah, it's just stuff to think about. All right.
It kind of plays in. I mean, it kind of can circle back to the non-consensual tow, just because I know I've seen it a lot where, one of the contracted companies for this apartment complex, they tow the vehicle out of the apartment, and all of a sudden they start going through their process, making the notifications that they towed it. Oh, it's a stolen vehicle. Right. Now they just lost that, and then now we're coming and taking it from them with our law enforcement tow company. So
right,
it's kind of one of those situations.
Yeah, I think we try to curb that a little bit with the statutory requirement for the towing carriers to alert local law enforcement when they engage in a non-consensual tow, which they should be doing in that first 30-minute window. So they should know in an ideal circumstance. And I know it doesn't always play out that way, but in an ideal circumstance.
Or they don't do it the way they're supposed to. Yeah.
That too. So yeah, you definitely got to follow, what the procedures are for that. But yeah, when they're reaching out to law enforcement in those situations, ideally, yeah, if it's a vehicle that's been logged as stolen in CCIC, then that's they should know right away that that's the situation, and react accordingly. But yeah, there are some that probably slip through the cracks, and that could be a situation that kind of sneaks up on a particular towing carrier and law enforcement agency. But no, it's a good point, Greg. Thanks. Well, let's see. So, as I said earlier, January, I think, is going to be when we will reconvene next. If we want to stick to the typical second Wednesday of the month, which is what we've done for probably the last 2 years now. That would put us at January 10th, which is a Wednesday. So you may want to just go ahead and pencil that in now, because that's looks like when we'll be scheduling the next towing task force meeting. That's what I'm doing right now, putting it on the calendar. And again, I think as part of that meeting, we'll go ahead and Mr. Roberts have that training. Do you still have that training?
I mean, do I have the outline?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's on the website anyway. But yeah, do you have just that? And I think it takes about, I don't know, 30 or so minutes to get through it all. It's stuff we get every year, so we should all be fairly familiar with the content, but
yeah,
still need to go through it and do all that to meet the criteria. So so yeah, please try to attend so we can get that requirement out.
It is a date not to miss. It's going to be exciting.
Yes, I always find this training to be exciting, because we don't just talk about you know, all the legalese and that require all those requirements that we're all subject to. But, you know, we also kind of do an overview on the commission and how the PUC works, and, you know, how we regulate the transportation industry and specifically the towing industry. So there's a lot of good info on there.
If you want to try to get some more people to attend the meeting, you can tell them that when I go through the training and cite examples of what not to do, I'm going to use the names of people who aren't there.
We will keep that in mind when we schedule the meeting.
Are we going to do what we did last year? If you missed the meeting, we can watch it, because I know I'm already going to miss it.
I think, I think that works fine, as long as you do the attestation that you watched it. It's cool.
Yeah, the attestation, the compliance affidavit basically mentions, yes, I am aware of this training and the substance therein, but also I've been given the opportunity to ask questions and all that, which obviously you can do with Mr. Roberts anytime. If you have any questions for him, you can always reach out to him.
Perfect. We got a new guy starting with the unit that week, so I'll be out training with that.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Some nice FTO work, huh?
Yeah, in the cold on motorcycles in January.
Nice.
Departments giving us at the cold time.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, right?
Yeah. We appreciate you doing that. All right. Any other thoughts anybody has? Again, since this is our December meeting, I'm not too surprised that we didn't have a big showing today, but also more on the administrative side, we are still working on recruiting to fill our vacancies. Obviously, we are still a few people down. So we've reached out to different people. Hadijah's been working diligently on that. And we've reached out to the different people that we thought might be good individuals to fill those roles, and who actually, want to participate, want to volunteer their time to be part of this group. So we've encouraged them all to file similar to the way we all did, file their applications with the governor's office, so those can be reviewed, and then ultimately the governor's office gets a recommendation letter on some of these individuals, and then decides to appoint. So that's kind of where we are right now. We hope to make some progress on that by the end of the year, because I know there are a few terms that are expiring. So anyway. All right. Well, thank you everybody for being here. It's about 2:38. So we 2:39. It just switched. So thanks everybody for being here. Like I said, please plan to be present in our next meeting on December 10th, 2:00 start time as usual, and we will plan to see you all then. Thanks everybody for coming.
All right.
Thanks,
See ya.
Thank you.